I'm smiling. Oh, that felt wrong. So, Smile. Second episode of Series 10. First jaunt, well, I would say proper jaunt off-world for Bill. She got to go off-planet a little bit in the pilot, but I mean, they were being chased then. It's not quite the same as landing and like feeling like you're seeing the future of humanity, the ingenuity of what we can build, and then nearly getting killed by it. So this one is... I'm going to say it's interesting, but I've got surprisingly few notes, and I don't know how long this is going to end up being. It's just pretty straightforward. The Doctor and the companions show up in a place. They would expect to find people. There's no people. What happened? How do we stop it from happening again? It's almost a stock modern era Doctor Who plot. Yet it's just well done. And it's gonna, I feel like I'm gonna have a hard time coming up with that many specific points to say about it. First of all, the bots with emoji makes sense to me, especially, and I honestly actually think it feeds into some of the nature of what's going on, because ultimately the reason that everything breaks down is that no matter how well you program a machine, no matter how much it learns, machines don't have emotions, and you cannot truly, accurately program a machine to understand emotions. Like, maybe you can program it to see emotional signifiers, but, you know, not everyone wears their emotions on their sleeve, so that's not always going to get you the result that you want. And ultimately, what causes the entire problem, and the reason these things start killing people, is a breakdown in the understanding of human emotions when they encounter grief and don't know what it is, and then draw a very bad conclusion out of it. And the reason I say that them visually having the emojis thing makes sense and feeds into that is because emojis are about the extent to which these machines understand emotion. Like, they understand sad, tear. They don't understand why. They can't properly comprehend what's going on inside of a person that causes that, but they can still sum up sad, tear. And that very oversimplistic representation visually on their screens and their faces and on the badges of what emotions are is very reflective of the very limited way that these machines understand what emotions are. It actually impacts the plot and bolstered. I tried to decide if I was going to say boosted or bolstered. I tried to say both. It didn't work, but it brings the whole thing up, and it feeds into the nature of the problem, and it became a really easy thing to make fun of. Oh, yeah, we'll never be rid of emojis. No, like there was a reason that was decided, and it's not just because emojis, let's appeal to the youth. So I like that. I like the design on the robots. The whole thing, two things. I like the notion that the Doctor puts out, which makes a lot of sense, that they started building this place on the foundation of just the ship they came in. Like, that's your house until you get something else built. Like, yeah, that makes total sense. Absolutely. And the idea of the micro bots, or whatever they call them this time, the Doctor Who keeps coming up with new names for very small and or microscopic machines. But anyways, the idea that the entire building is made out of them is a neat idea. That being said, once you realize it is pretty much the entire building, it does break the situation slightly, because we see a chunk of the wall detach and like go after them, but I'm like, if it's literally everything that isn't in the basement where the ship is, why is only one part of the wall detaching and chasing after them? Why doesn't literally every wall just close in around them? Why only that one section? So it's a neat idea, but it creates a situation where theoretically they should be way easy. The Doctor and Bill should be way easier to catch for these robots than it turns out they are. I'm also kind of impressed, especially given that they tie the loss of a parent and deal with the impact of that on a child. I'm pretty impressed that the deaths don't get undone. Doctor Who doesn't always roll back and undo deaths, and actually I would say it's the minority of times that happens. But we have gone from Series 1, Everybody Lives, being this big momentous moment. Heck, I devoted an entire video to how awesome that moment was and how the entire series up to that point had been building to it. But we've gone from there to feeling like most of the time, most people are okay. And we've had enough situations where people appear to die and then they don't. You know, off the top of my head, things like Silence in the Library and The Forest of the Dead. Like, yes, physically they're dead, but their consciousnesses are preserved and uploaded. Or, you know, things more recently, things like Time Heist, where, oh, this thing and it completely atomizes you. Oh, no, it turns out it's just a teleporter. Not to mention, you know, that they've been reusing that idea of like, oh, you disintegrated. Nope, teleport with Missy and whatever. And so, while I'm not going to say that Doctor Who has been devoid of deaths in the last few years, it hasn't been uncommon for these things to get rolled back. And I would have expected, if they were going to roll it back, the idea of how damaged this young boy that we end up seeing is going to be, because his mother's dead. I think it was established as his mother, but like a parent is dead. I would have kind of expected that to get undone, that to be reversed in some way, but nope. That's harsh, and I respect it. Oh, talking about the boy though, the episode did a very bad job establishing him just wandering. So like, Bill runs into him. Bill takes him to the doctor, and he just wanders off, and neither of them notices. Like for a while, because he's wandering the corridors long enough to run into the robots, get a badge, start to figure out that something is going wrong. Like, he has wandered a ways, and it takes forever for them to notice that he's not there anymore. That bugged me a little bit. We don't get a ton of Nardole in this one, but I'll tell you what Nardole's really good for, especially when talking with the Doctor? Nardole's a great nag. Oh, he's so good for that. Just this fed up thing in his voice, and the Doctor treating him like an annoying babysitter. It's like, yeah, sure, no, I'll do what you tell me to. So I love that dynamic, and that's just a really good thing to be slotting Matt Lucas in for a recurring part. Like I've pointed out before, Nardole gets better, and like this right here, this is like my platonic idea of Nardole. I like Nardole a lot, but I really enjoy him in this role as the person who is annoyed that he has to keep an eye on the Doctor. I also really like how happy Bill seems just to be there. Just to be on another planet, to be seeing a future. She has this wonderful sense of, this is just awesome. Because I've felt like with some of the companions, not all, but some, there's been a sense of, when's it going to get interesting? When's it going to get exciting? I would get that occasionally from Rose. Sometimes I get that from Amy. I got that from Clara. You know, it's not just enough for them to see other worlds. Like, they need excitement with it. And it's nice to see someone who's just amazed. Bill's just amazed to be there. And I really, really like that. Oh, and you know what's something that I meant to talk about in the pilot? So I'm going to bring it up here. I like that the Doctor is pulled towards Bill simply because she exhibits curiosity. Because looking at, or at least to my interpretation, the reason the Doctor has taken on some of the companions, it's been a bit of a mix. Because honestly, with both Amy and with Rose, it felt a little bit like, well, that's the first person that he ran into. He just kind of built an attachment. And then, with someone like Clara, there's that draw of the impossible girl and all of that, but then there's someone, and even with Donna, like he was thrust into a situation with her and, came to appreciate who she was, but like she wouldn't have caught his eye otherwise. It was really only Martha was pretty much the only other one aside from Bill where the doctor went, oh, yeah. So it's nice to see that back rather than it feeling either like the doctor is put in with the companion forced by circumstance or because he's solving a mystery. So I like that about how the setup of how Bill and the doctor came together. And I feel like that's continuing to play out in things like how excited she is to be on another planet and continue to make these, again, just slightly off-center observations that are valid, but not the sort of thing that shows like this would normally ever bring up. So I that's continuing to be a part of her character. So I love that. Oh, I also like that there was a nod from the doctor to the fact that the whole ships fleeing Earth thing, that he's run into a few over the years. That's the kind of continuity line I love, because without diving into a ton of detail, without bogging or even slowing the scene down, it just establishes, we know this kind of thing has happened elsewhere before. It's an acknowledgement of the continuity without getting dragged down by the continuity, because anyone who has been watching the show for a while would know, like, wait, like they fled a dying Earth? Didn't we see that in like back in Classic with things like Ark in Space? And like we know the Earth eventually became uninhabited because we saw it in the End of the World. And like then we had Beast Below with Starship UK. Like, wait, so just a little line going, I've run into a few of these over the years. Just simple, and it just ties stuff up, and it's just a recognition of, no, we know that we've done this premise of why humans are on another planet before. We'll probably do it again. Just roll with it. And I like that. I think that's about all I've got. The few issues I have are pretty nitpicky, like the kid wandering off. It's like, what? I like the acknowledgement of the doctor that the robots have basically become a new species. It feels like a natural progression kind of from what went on with the gangers in the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People. These things that humanity created have clearly come to some level of consciousness. But there it was less of a leap because they still looked, or at least were capable of looking like people. Whereas the robots definitely don't, but that doesn't mean they have any less right to be treated as a species and negotiated with and respected for their own personages. And so I do like that. I kind of wish that had more of a through line. It does seem a little bit thrown in towards the end. But it does tie in a little bit because, as I said, these machines don't properly understand human emotions, but there's more to life and existence than that. That is not all that defines sentience. Human beings, especially in sci-fi settings, there tends to be this putting on a pedestal the idea of our emotions. All the way back to, Star Trek, and how often it was something that was framed with Spock, and how largely it was as not a failing, but something that it's like set him apart and made him less human. Or again, sticking with Star Trek, someone like Data, where the thing that he eventually adopts to try and feel more human is an emotion chip. There's a lot of pinning of this idea of, well, if it feels the way that we understand feelings, then maybe it's really life. And I kind of like this, and again, it doesn't dive into it that deeply, but I do like this acknowledgement that, like, there is more to life than feelings. And this can be a valid form of life as well. And the fact that they don't have and understand emotions is, again, kind of at the root of the problem. So I do like that, but it is just kind of, I've got to connect those dots, and the episode doesn't do a lot with it. It's just kind of there. I do like it, but I wish that if they were going to go there, it had been a little bit more central, a little bit more integrated, but it's fine. That aspect is fine. And the episode as a whole is pretty good. It's better than I remember. Not that it's amazing, but it definitely does not have very many stumbling points. And lots of what's going on, I like. This is good. I dig it. Smile! You rewatched it lately? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff. Like, share, subscribe, all that things. I have a Patreon, which is how I pay the bills and keeps this entire thing up and running. Any help is greatly appreciated. And there are, of course, perks and all of that. But no pressure. You don't have to. End of the day, you are the council. I'm only running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.